I've owned my Boxster now for what feels like forever, to be honest, but it's only been 2 months. Probably considering the amount of miles I've actually done, it feels like I've had the car a lot longer than I've actually owned it for. But because I've done that high miles in the car, especially compared to its previous owner doing 700 per year, I think I figured out what I really like and what I really dislike about this car. Now, when I say things I dislike about it, obviously there are going to be some things that are just, minor grievances, minor annoyances, but then there's things that I think are just genuinely ridiculous about the design of this car. So let's go into the first thing that I really, really love about it, and that's just the practicality of this car. Hang on, I know what I just said there, a 2-seater mid-engine sports car by Porsche being practical. Well, yeah, if you have a look at the boot back here, you're not going to get any engine access from here, but it's not very deep. It is quite wide though. You've got enough space back here for about a weekend's getaway worth of baggage. If this isn't enough though, then you also have the frunk. Now, this is the complete opposite to the boot, where it is not very wide, but it is quite deep. Stored in here normally is your battery, your CD changer, your spare wheel and tools, your brake reservoir and your washer fluid reservoir. And if you actually want to put something in here, you've got enough to put a genuine human in here. I would know, I've tried, I've put my mate in here, he's also tried to get in the back of it, doesn't work. So kidnapping people, you'll only get one in the front. That's a joke, YouTube. It's also genuinely clever with its practicality on the interior. You've got 2 little door pockets that have got these black flaps that go over them to make them look a lot better, but when you fill them up, they're huge. You've also got some bits behind the seats, because these are the same seats that come out of the 996 911, so you can put maps in there, you can put little bits in there. You've also got a little cubby that is put straight behind the seats that is designed perfectly to fit with the roof. You've also got cup holders in this car. They are very odd. They are ones that are detachable and go straight in the air vents. You've got your 2 little places that you can put things in the center console, and also a nice spot for an umbrella from Porsche. This car has it. What it doesn't have, however, is a glove box. In the 90s, typically you chose between a glove box and an airbag. Porsche chose airbag. I'd rather have glove box, thanks. Now, I'm going to put things I hate 1 and 2 into the same spot. That's because they're both to do with the gauges. Now, you have a regular old speedometer and you also have a digital speedometer in the middle of the car just under the rev counter. Now, these two don't line up at all. If you are doing 60 miles an hour on the digital speedometer, you'll end up doing something like 55 or 56 on the physical one. Now, I know that cars are typically not exactly accurate, especially of 1990s, but it's a little bit jarring when you're thinking, okay, the digital says one thing, the physical says another, and then Google Maps says another. Which do you go? Well, obviously Google Maps, but it's a bit annoying when the car does it. The second one that I've got that I hate about gauges is that it's got an oil gauge that will tell you what the oil level is once you have put the car on for the first time, and then it will give you a countdown if you haven't ran the car from 5 or 9 seconds all the way down to 0, and then it will tell you what the car thinks the oil level is. It is the most inaccurate thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's made me think that I have lost all of my engine oil before multiple times, because at one point I filled up the engine oil all the way to maximum on the dipstick, just to then come to work the next day, park on a slight incline, and it to tell me there is no oil on the dashboard and that it's flashing at me to get my oil level checked. Check the dipstick, maximum. Ugh. 90 cars trying to be more clever than they actually are is one of my biggest pet peeves. It's why I like older classics, but this car is just at that unfortunate point where it's starting to think it's cleverer than the technology actually is. Another thing I love is just the genuine support for these cars. Now, there are quite a few forums, obviously, for, well, any car, but for the 986, there's dedicated forums out there. You've also got parts from Design 911, which are brilliant, but quite expensive. You've got people that are just genuine lovers of these cars that supply parts on eBay. I had one guy on eBay who supplied the roof switch that went wrong on my car, and he was lovely to deal with. He had quite a lot of experience with his cars. He knew what he was talking talking about. There are so many places that you can get decent help, including Porsche. Porsche classify this car as one of their classic cars now. So that means that they are lesser on actual garage rates, lesser on parts, and they still do make some parts for the 986 Boxster. Same with the 996, 911, which this does share quite a few bits with, as I said in my original video. So if you need a bit for this car, you're not exactly going to be stranded unless it's a very, very rare tech equipment part, which unfortunately this car has quite a few of, and that's where I'm going for the next thing I hate about it, the price. Now, it's a Porsche, I should know this, and yes, I do. I'm just saying this is a minor annoyance rather than anything that's actually huge. But this car has tech equipment parts on it. The interior parts, like the gear knob and the handbrake lever, they are tech equipment. The floor mats that have Porsche written on, they're tech equipment. The seats that have the Porsche embroidering on them, they are tech equipment. The aero kit on this car, it's tech equipment. And as I said before, the front bumper on this car is $3.5 grand. So if I get into a crash, if someone hits me in the front of this car, and that bumper gets damaged, that is the whole car gone. That's the value of the car on a bumper that is made of polyurethane. Ooh, that scares me. If you were lucky enough that your 986 or your 996 came with its toolkit, you should get one of these. This little tool is a headlight remover. And why am I bringing this up as one of the things I love? Well, simply to remove the headlights, there's a little hole here, you pop the tool in there, you twist it one way, and the whole headlight assembly pops out. It will even disconnect everything for you, so then you can replace all of the bulbs and then simply slot your headlight back in place. And it's even brilliant if you need to paint something. You can just take the lights out in a matter of seconds and not have to mask over them. And also when these yellow, because they do yellow quite badly. Should we go for another love? Insurance. So, you may think I'm 19 years old, I drive a Porsche. What do you think insurance companies are going to say? They're going to ask me for 55 grand, they're going to ask me for my life savings and about 90% of everything I take from my job, all as one. No, surprisingly not. This is genuinely cheaper for me to insure than a Fiesta ST150, a Clio 182, my own Mazda MX-5 that I had before, and even cheaper than that 1.6 Clio I had too, the Initiale. But this is £2,000 a year to insure this car at 19 years old. That's not terrible, considering the fact that these cars usually, if you want to get something for this kind of size, if you want to get something at this price, you're going to go for a Mazda MX-5, you're going to go for a Toyota MR2, you're going to go for an MGTF. They are going to be a lot more on insurance because a lot more people my age buy those cars and crash them. So if you actually think about it in the way of insurance and purchase price together, this comes to the same cost, if not possibly less than either of those cars. I've seen people get quotes as high as £5,000 on a Mazda MX-5 1.6. That's one thing I love about this. It's statistics, not the engine. Two more things that I hate, both about the engine. So because of the way the architecture of the engine is, with them completely flat instead of straight and vertical, with the oil that will then be able to drip down over time if the piston rings haven't scraped it off the bore. On a flat engine, if the piston rings haven't scraped it off the bore and there is still oil left in the combustion chamber, then it is just going to clog there. It's just going to sit there because it's a flat surface, it's not going to move. So it is very common for these to smoke on startup. Now I know, why am I hating this? It's a tiny thing that's just an architecture about the engine. Because it's f***ing scary. You get out of the car, or you get in the car in the morning, you turn it on for the first time, oh, you got smoke coming out the back. You think your engine's died, you think something's gone wrong. No, it's just the architecture of the engine. Now they can go worse, and then you can get a whole plume of smoke, and even that isn't bad, because that would be the oil air separator, or the AOS, I said that the wrong way round, that will have gone in these cars, and that's just oil fumes getting into the combustion chamber again through the PCV, and then it just chucks out a boatload of blue and white smoke out the back. And that's normal with these cars. It's a normal issue with Boxsters. The second is the fact that, how do you access the engine? What a faff.
Now, one of my favourite parts about this car is something I've touched on previously, and that is the gear shifter. Now, I've come from a Mazda MX-5 before this, which has, and is well known for having one of the best gear shifters in any manual sports car. It's notchy, it's short throw, you feel every gear that you're going into. This isn't that. And do you know what? I prefer it. It's a longer throw than the MX-5 gearbox. Granted, it doesn't have the same metallic kind of clicking noise when you get it into gear. Granted. However, the feeling of this gearbox is smooth and metallic, and it does feel involved. It's just a much more of a GT car's throw rather than an out-and-out aggressive, well, I say aggressive, it's an MX-5 that we're talking about, but stripped out sports car feel. This is much more of a GT-focused sports car, and do you know what? I love it for it. People have asked me, do you miss your old MX-5? I put a lot of work into that car, that a lot of it I didn't even share on YouTube. I'll make a video on it at some point. But this car doesn't make me miss it. It really doesn't. And I think I'll talk about that next time. Take care, guys.